Last week, it was widely reported that a certain allotment of 3 billion naira, being money voted for the health sector, had gone missing and cannot be accounted for after an internal audit. As usual, there was a great outpouring of public anger on social media platforms, and even one or two persons with a more than passing interest in the matter thought it fit to take steps to sustain the media buzz. But it ultimately fizzled out. What will happen now? Will the money ever be recovered or discovered? Joining us now from Arise Abuja studio to talk about this is Hamzat Lawal, anti-corruption activist and founder of due process and accountability watchdog Follow the Money, who'll be looking at the cost of corruption to maintenance of health infrastructure and a healthy population. Welcome to the program. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for having me. Good morning, Nigeria.
Good morning. Thank you for joining us. Well, about 21 minutes ago, you tweeted on your handle at Hamzat, how do we keep calm in the face of missing 3.8 billion naira? Where apparently the Nigerian people are not keeping calm in terms of their response to that 2018 audited report released by the Office of the Auditor General. So who is keeping calm here, and what are your own concerns for raising that question?
Well, my concerns are the National Assembly is keeping calm because the Auditor General have done her constitutional mandate and have audited the accounts of the Federation, inclusive the Ministry of Health. What we had expected with all the outcry from young people and other citizens on social media is that the National Assembly, particularly the Committee of Public Accounts, would have invited the Minister of Health and the Permanent Secretary on their management to come and give account of how 3.8 billion naira is unaccounted for. I wouldn't want to use the word missing. It's either we say it has been stolen or it has been misappropriated, because we cannot say this money is missing. This money moved from account to account. So it cannot be missing because when you study accounting or when you do auditing, there's what we call money trail, or there's what you call paper trail. So this money has a trail. So the Public Accounts Committee at the National Assembly should have by now called for a public hearing and ensure that we get justice. 3.8 billion during the time of a pandemic is not a joke. And this is a call for worry, because if by now 2018 audited accounts, we've seen that 3.8 billion is missing, what would happen when they now audit the 2020 and 2021 account, knowing that over 30 billion have been spent towards COVID-19? That was when the Accountant General of the Federation responded to a Freedom of Information letter that was sent by my organization, Connected Development, in collaboration with SERAP. So when these monies would now be audited, what results would we get? In 2018, mind you, there was no pandemic. And I believe that if this money was spent judiciously, probably would have responded better to the pandemic that we're currently in. And this moment is a moment where government should work to rebuild public trust. A lot of people right now, when we had COVID at that time, they didn't believe in COVID. Now we're also dealing with the conspiracy about vaccines. And now citizens are hearing that 3.8 billion has gone missing from the Ministry of Health. This is not the time where the Ministry of Health would cause disunity in our country. The Minister of Finance should not keep mute. The Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Finance should not keep mute. The National Assembly, because when I said people, I meant the National Assembly, because the National Assembly is a true representation of the Nigerian people. They cannot keep quiet in the face of injustice.
Well, thank you for that. The word missing, I don't see as a euphemism. It's leaving room for the outcome of an investigation that really, as you say, ought to be conducted. Now, SERAP, that you're well aware of this, I'm sure, has sued the president for his failure to launch an investigation. What is your take on that?
I think that we also need to understand that institutions created by law are meant to function. If For me, I would not put my energy to call Mr. President to launch an investigation. Mr. President is an individual. I think as a country and as we evolve in our democracy, we must build institutions. For me, I would say, what is the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission doing? What is the Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission doing? What is the Nigerian Financial Intelligence Unit doing? I would rather focus on institutions than focus on individuals. What are they doing to ensure that they investigate this matter and educate and provide information to the Nigerian people on how this money has moved from the Ministry of Health? 3.8 billion is not a small money. Even if it's 1 naira, the Nigerian people deserve to know how this money was spent, or if this money was misappropriated, who misappropriated this money, or who stole this money, and what are they doing to put this person behind bars.
Mr. Lawal, we're going to take a short break and we'll be back with more conversation with Hamzat Lawal. Do stay with us. Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. We're still with Hamzat Lawal, anti-corruption activist and founder of due process and accountability watchdog Follow the Money. Rufai.
Right, thank you so much for that, Tundo. Real quickly, Hamza, it has been quite a while this has been happening, in Nigeria. I mean the governance process. In fact, the ICPC recently released a report. I was talking about the fact that you had some monies that were left unspent, still lodged in some accounts of ministries and the likes. Is there any hard way to follow this trail and to be able to pick that bone out vividly so that everybody can see it and probably push further to ensuring that appropriate punishment is meted out to those involved?
No, this is not rocket science. There's no hard way to follow this money trail. Mind you, this money moves from the Federation account, and from the Federation account, it goes to various ministries, departments, and agencies. So it's no rocket science. And for every money spent in Nigeria, it's either appropriated or it's based on special intervention, or you have a constitutional mandate to move this money to various MDAs. So it's no rocket science, really. It's just for us to see a strong commitment and political will. Mind you, we have institutions of government that are saddled with the responsibility to ensure that people who try to maneuver the system are brought to justice. So for me, it's no rocket science.
No,
if we as a civil society watch
Hamza, I'm deliberately asking you this. It's because 2 years ago, the ICPC had this big, inquiry into what happened with constituency projects. And they did show that some people did siphon constituency project money. They saw wheelbarrows that were supposed to be for constituency in people's homes, but nothing has been done. So that's what I'm saying. Is there any hard way to follow the facts and follow the evidence and put it out there and punish people? Because we can come and raise alarm with civil society from today till tomorrow. We'll keep raising alarm till thy kingdom come and nothing will be done.
Well, I think what we're seeing, and without mincing words, it's more of a media show and a media trial. And I like the word that you use, raising alarm. Because if the ICPC had done their investigation and they have evidence, and mind you, when you fight corruption, it's not only the executive that has a role to play, you also have the judiciary. But what we need to also know, and I think we need to ask the ICPCs, who have been prosecuted, or is the prosecution ongoing? And so we know, and so it's not just about raising alarm. And after 2 years, another announcement will be made, maybe by the Auditor General, or maybe by ICPC or EFCC. And I think I want to reference this to the question Ruben Abati asked when he focused on the president. And I think, in as much as I want to focus more on institution rather than individual, this is also an indictment to Mr. President and his government, or the APC-led administration, because you had campaigned that you're going to come into office and you fight corruption. And speaking of Mr. President, where's Mr. President right now? Because we're talking about the health sector, and a sector that needs public confidence. And then Mr. President is taking a break to see his doctors in the UK. And I've seen that some of his aides have defended Mr. President, saying that, before he became Mr. President, he had always gone to the UK to seek medical advice or seen his doctors in the UK. Mind you, then he was a private citizen. Now he's the president of over 200 million people who don't have access to timely and quality health care. whose doctors are currently on strike because of bad governance. So again, as much as I want to focus on institution, Mr. President has a bigger share on this indictment because this is under his watch. And I guess that's why Serap is suing Mr. President to commission an independent investigation. But we have an Attorney General of the Federation and a Minister of Justice. The Attorney General does not need to wait for Mr. President to ensure that he commission a panel of inquiry. You know, the ICPC, the EFCC does not need to wait for Mr. President. So again, I don't want, and I hope this does not become a media frenzy. And after a few weeks, everyone moves on because Nigeria is an interesting country that there's always breaking news and there's some interesting aspect of it. But I believe the National Assembly have a bigger role to play. The National Assembly, particularly the Committee on Public Accounts, must bring the Minister for Health and the Permanent Secretary and her management to come and give account on what happened to the 3.8 billion in 2018. And the good thing is, the same minister was the minister in 2018. So there was no change. So there was no handover. So he, as the chief financial officer, must come and give account of this missing or misappropriated or stolen 3.8 billion, particularly in a time of pandemic.
Okay, Hamzat, just by way of update, one, the president in a letter to the King of Jordan says he's taking a rest, a short rest in the UK. And that's the president in a letter that is signed personally. It is his spokespersons who have told us that he went to the UK for a medical checkup. Second update, you talked about the National Assembly playing a role. That 2018 audited report of federal government accounts. Now, the Senate Committee on Public Accounts chairman, Senator Matthew Urogide, says that committee has been looking at it. And I double-checked, and indeed, that particular report is before that committee. Maybe what you mean is that, they've been considering it for too long. They need to come to some kind of closure. Now, that particular report by the Auditor General's office raised other issues. It talks, for example, about 55 vehicles that the Federal Ministry of Environment cannot account for. But of late, Serap and your own NGO, Follow the Money, you've been focusing on the health sector rather than the report holistically. Is this all about this, concern about 3.8 billion naira, specifically about the fact that the president of Nigeria either went for a medical checkup, as his spokespersons are saying, or he went to take a short rest, as he himself has now clearly stated in a letter to the King of Jordan?
Well, I don't speak for Mr. President, and I know he has spokespeople, but I know Mr. President is, he's entitled to rest. But what, as a citizen who pays tax in Nigeria, does not understand is how he would use public resources and fly to the UK and see doctors and rest. That alone is taking our resources to help another country increase their gross domestic product. Imagine if the president had traveled to Yankari Game Reserve or had traveled to Obudu Cattle Ranch to take a rest. Imagine what that would do to the economy of those two states if he had selected one of those states and stay within his country and rest. Of course, everyone deserves to rest, Mr. President inclusive. But then going outside of Nigeria, knowing that, we've just come out of a recession and we need to ensure that our resources circulate in the country. But that being said, again, for us at Follow the Money, we're looking at it holistically. It's not just about, the 3.8 billion. We're more concerned about a robust fiscal accountability mechanism, not only in Nigeria, but in Africa, because in collaboration with Budget, we're looking at 7 African countries. What are we learning? What is happening? If you follow the news in Malawi and in Kenya, there's a big scandal around COVID-19. Even right now in Kenya, citizens are saying that IMF should not give the Kenyan government loan, that the previous loan, they don't know how they utilize it. And if you look at debt, because again, this is a big issue in Africa, debt is increasing, foreign reserve is depleting. And for us, it has to be a holistic fiscal responsibility. So for us, we're looking at fiscal accountability, not only in Nigeria, not only in the health sector, but the health sector is important because without health, there is no wealth. Without health, we cannot move forward. And for us, we're more concerned because it's not only about citizens in city centers, what happens to the grassroots? Because we're looking at primary healthcare centers, because that's where, you know, grassroots people access quality healthcare. And this also ties to the pandemic and the conversation around a robust healthcare. And mind you, Nigeria is a signature to a lot of international treaties, the Sustainable Development Goal, the African Union 2063 agenda. We're also a signatory to the Open Government Partnership. So why are we not getting information? And I'm really excited that the Accountant General, even if when you look at the law that has put together the Office of the Auditor General, rather, you know, it's a law you know, that is outdated. And I know that there's a conversation about having an audit bill that is meant to be passed and signed by the president. Hopefully, when we get this bill into law, it will also give more independence to the Auditor General, because we want an Auditor General that would not only produce a report and submit. We want an Auditor General that would go further in using that report to prosecute.
Well, thank you very much, Hamzat Lawal. You know, interesting points you have made there.